Today we will discuss human skeleton. This is the topic of discussion, but in human skeleton we will discuss axial skeleton first, and in second part we will discuss the appendicular skeleton. First of all, we all know that what is a human skeleton or what is skeleton. The skeleton is the framework of body. It is the framework of body around which all the body is made. Like for example, if we want to make a car, first we make the frame for that, and then we make the full car. Like that, we have a skeleton which is hard tissues, and around which all the muscles are, all the vessels are arranged. So this is called the skeleton. Then this human skeleton gives support and proper shape to our body. So the framework of body around which the all body is made, and it gives proper shape to body, and also it gives support to body, right? Now we will classify the human skeleton. The human skeleton is divided into two parts. The first is axial skeleton and the second one is appendicular skeleton. The axial skeleton is fixed on its place. It is fixed. And this appendicular skeleton is suspended to axial skeleton. This is the difference between appendicular and axial skeleton. The axial skeleton is further divided into three parts. The first one is skull, the second one is ribs, cage, and the third one is vertebral column. So we can say that axial skeleton have three parts. The one is skull, the ribs cage, and vertebral column. Appendicular skeleton is divided into two further parts. The first one is upper limbs and lower limbs. Now in this today lecture we will focus only on axial skeleton, the skull, the ribs cage, and vertebral column. So the skull is further divided into two parts, a face and cranium. The ribs cage is divided into three further parts. One is true ribs, false ribs, and floating ribs, right? The vertebral column is further divided into five regions: the cervical vertebraes, thoracic vertebraes, lumbar vertebraes, the sacral and coccyx vertebrae. These are the five regions of vertebral column. We will discuss these regions in detail after a few seconds. The appendicular skeleton, which is suspended from axial skeleton, and this is the movable parts of the human skeleton, is composed of upper limbs and lower limbs. The upper limbs have further 64 bones, and the lower limbs have 62 bones, right? Just in this diagram we can see the black areas. This is the skull. This whole area is ribs cage, and this is called the vertebral column. All these three parts is axial, making axial skeleton of our body, axial skeleton. And the green parts, these are upper limbs, and these are lower limbs. Both the upper and lower limbs making appendicular skeleton. Right, this is just the introduction of the axial and appendicular skeleton. The human skeleton is divided into two parts. The one is axial skeleton and the second one is appendicular skeleton. The axial skeleton is further divided into skull, ribs cage, vertebral column. The skull is further divided into two parts, the face and cranium. Because in this video today we will focus on the axial skeleton, so we divide the axial skeleton further. The skull is composed of face and cranium. The ribs cage is composed of true ribs, false ribs, and floating ribs. After some time, we will discuss that what are the true ribs, what are the false ribs, and what are the floating ribs, and why they are called the true, false, and floating ribs. The vertebral column is further divided into five regions: the cervical vertebrae, thoracic vertebrae, lumbar vertebrae, sacral and coccygeal vertebrae. And after this lecture, in next lecture, we will discuss this appendicular skeleton, which is composed of the upper limbs and lower limbs. The upper limbs, in upper limbs we will discuss 64 bones, and lower limbs there are 62. In this diagram, this is the human skeleton. The black parts shows the axial skeleton, which is further have skull, ribs cage, and vertebral column, and the green parts in this diagram shows the appendicular skeleton, which is composed of upper limbs and lower limbs. Right, now we will start the axial skeleton and we'll discuss all the bones of axial skeleton. In this video, we will first focus on only the names and location of the axial skeleton bones. After that, we will discuss the bones one by one in further lectures. The axial skeleton, as we know that it is composed of three parts. The first one is the skull, the ribs cage, and vertebral column. The first part is skull. Skull is the upper, or this is the cephalic parts of axial skeleton, and the skull is further composed of 28 bones. In whole human skeleton, we have 206 bones. In axial skeleton, skull is composed of 28 bones. This 28 bones is further divided into two parts. First is cranial bones and facial bones. Right, in cranium there are 8 bones. 8 bones. In face there are 22. Sorry, there are 20 bones. Right, full number is 28 bones in skull. Right, the cranium is the part of this skull which protects our brain. The brain is the vital organ, and we will discuss the types of bones further. That the function of flat bone is protection of vital organs. These all are flat bones, and it protects the brain inside the cranium. The cranium is composed of 8 bones. Out of 8, 2 are paired and the further are unpaired. Right, first of all we have frontal bone. This red bone is frontal bone. The second one is parietal bones. Parietal bones are impaired. Right, this is parietal bone. Right, the third one is this green bone, which is called occipital, and occipital is the bone where spinal cord joins the brain. Right, our vertebral column joins the skull. Right, so this is occipital bone. This is occipital bone. Right, the next is temporal bone. The temporal bone is this black bone is temporal bone, right? The next is sphenoid bone. This green bone is this is sphenoid bone, right? And the last one here is ethmoid bone. Ethmoid bone, right? Which making the base of the roof of the orbitals, right? The frontal bone is 1 in number, parietal are 2, occipital is 1, the temporal bones are 2 in number, the sphenoid bones are 1 in number, and ethmoid also 1 in number, right? If we count, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So cranium have 8 bones, right? Cranium is composed of 8 bones, right? Out of cranial bones, for example, cranial bones, it is divided into two parts. The one is paired bones, paired cranial bones, right? And the second one is unpaired cranial bones, right? The paired are, the one is parietal, which are 2 in number, right and left parietal bones, and the second one is temporal bones, right and left, right? These two are in paired form, and unpaired are, the first one is frontal bone, second is occipital, the third one is sphenoid, fourth one is ethmoid bone, right? So these are the unpaired cranial bones, and these are the paired cranial bones. The next part of the skull is the facial bone, right? Face is divided into two parts. The one are the visible bones which we can see with our eyes, and the second one is the deep bones which are present in ears. They are called auditory ossicles. The facial bones are, the first one is occipital, zygomatic bone, maxilla, mandible, humor, nasal bones, inferior conchaeus, the palatine bones, and lacrimal bones. Right? Zygomatic are 2 in number, the right and left. Zygomatic, right and left. So 2 zygomatics, 2 maxilla, 1 mandible, 1 humor. All these bones are inferred. 2 nasal bones, 2 inferior conchaeus, 2 palatine bones, and 2 lacrimal bones, right? So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So as we have discussed that face is composed of 14 visible bones, right? And the next four, the 6 bones are present in the middle ear. For example, this is the external ear, this is tympanic membrane and tympanic cavity. This is tympanic cavity of middle ear. It have one bone here which is called the malleus bone, right? The next bone is present like this, which is called the incus, and the last bone is present here, which is called the stapes. So this is malleus, this green bone is incus, and this black is stapes, and stapes is the shortest bone in our body, right? So auditory ossicles are the malleus, the right and left. So these are two, the incus, right and left, and stapes, right and left. So auditory ossicles are six in number, right? Three bones present in each ear. If we add all these bones, right? For example, in cranium there are 8 bones, in face there are 14 bones, and in auditory ossicle there are 6 bones. It makes 28, right? So this is the counting of these the skull bones, which are 28 in number. The skull is divided into the cranium, face bones, and auditory ossicles. The cranium is further composed of frontal bone, parietal bone, occipital, temporal bone, sphenoid, ethmoid, right? For example, if I have a skull, this is the frontal bone, this is the parietal bone, the back one is occipital bone, these are the temporal bones, and these are the sphenoid, and which are making the base of the skull is called ethmoid bone. In face we have, these are zygomatic bones, these are maxilla, this is mandible, which is the only movable bone in the face, and in nose, which divides the nose into two parts, is called humor. For example, if we have nose here, this is nose, and the bone present here, this is called humor bone, this is called humor bone. These bones are called nasal bones. This is inferior conchae and palatine bones, and the bones present here, which are near the orbitals, are lacrimal bones, right? So these are the bones of the skull, right? The next part of the axial skeleton is ribs cage, right? Ribs cage is composed of sternum and 24 ribs, but these 24 ribs are in pairs. So 12 into 2 is equal to 24, mean there are 12 pairs of ribs. The ribs are further divided into three parts. The first one is true ribs, false ribs, and floating ribs, right? The true ribs are 7 in number on each side. For example, these are 7 on right and 7 on left, so 14 are true ribs. Then the next 3 are false ribs, and the next 2 are floating ribs, right? Why they are called true ribs, false ribs, and floating ribs? Because the true ribs are directly attached to these are directly attached to sternum, so they are called the true ribs. The false ribs are indirectly attached to sternum, so they are called the false ribs. And the floating ribs are not attached to sternum, so they are called the floating ribs, right? Let's see here in this diagram. This is the diagram of ribs cage, ribs cage, right? This is the sternum. This green area of the sternum is called the body of sternum, right? This red area of sternum, this is called manubrium, right? And this area is called xiphoid process. So this is the sternum. Now These red areas are the cartilages through which all the ribs are attached to the sternum, and this cartilage is called costal cartilage. Costal cartilage, right? And one thing other, that if I have this sternum, the area which is responsible for attachment of the ribs here, for example, this is the area through which the ribs are attached to the sternum. For example, this is rib. This red area is called the facet. If first rib is attaching here, this is called facet 1. If second facet, second, third facet, fourth facet, right? So these are the facets in which the ribs are attached, right? And these reds are the costal cartilages. This is costal cartilage 1, costal cartilage 2, costal cartilage 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, right? So the first ribs, these are the first rib, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? For example, this is R1, this is R2, this is R3, this is R4, R5, R6, R7. These are the first 7 ribs. The first 7 ribs on right side, also the first 7 ribs on left side, they are directly attached to the sternum through costal cartilages. So they are called the true ribs. These 7s are called true ribs, right? The next 3, these 3, the 8, 9, and 10, here are 8 or 9 or 10. They are indirectly attached to the sternum because as we see here that this is the costal cartilage 1, this is costal cartilage 2, this is costal cartilage 3, this is 4, this is 5, this is 6, and this is 7. So we have only 7 facets and sternum, right? And we have 10 ribs which are attached to the sternum, right? So first ribs, 7 ribs are directly attached to the sternum, they are called true ribs. The next 3, the R8, R9, and R10, they are first attached to each other by the costal cartilage. This is the costal cartilage of R8, R9, R10, mean that R8, R9, R10 have same costal cartilage, right? And this costal cartilage joining the costal cartilage of the 7th rib. For example, this green is the costal cartilage of R7, right? And this red is the costal cartilage of R8, common cartilage R8, R9, and R10. First it attached to the costal cartilage of R7, and then it joins the sternum through facet number 7. So these are called false ribs because they are indirectly attached to the sternum, right? So the R8, R9, and R10 are called false ribs, right? And this is the facet, right? The next 2 ribs, 11 and 12, they are not attached to the sternum, they are ending blindly. For example, this is R11 and this is R12, they are blindly ending, and they are called floating, they are floating freely, so they are called floating ribs, right? All these ribs making the rib sketch. For example, the true ribs are 7 in number. 7 into 2 means 7 on right and 7 on left, they are 14. The false ribs are 3 on right and 3 on left, making the false ribs, and floating ribs 2 on each side, making 4 ribs. For example, this is the rib cage. The 14 ribs are true ribs, 6 are false ribs, and 4 are floating ribs, right? 14 and 6, 20, plus 4, 24. So there are 24 ribs in ribs cage. This is the second part of the axial skeleton, right? The third part is vertebral column. Vertebral column is the very important part of the exoskeleton, which protects the spinal cord. What is the function of ribs cage? The ribs cage, it protects the vital organs. For example, it protecting heart, also it protecting liver, also it protects the kidneys, and it also protect the lungs, right? The ribs are the flat bones, so it protects the four vital organs: kidneys, heart, liver, and lungs, right? uh, the skull protects, in skull the cranium protects brain, right? Now this vertebral column protects the spinal cord, which is the very important part of, which is the primary part of the central nervous system, is protecting by vertebral column. And vertebral column is composed of 33 further bones. It is composed of 33 vertebrae, and 33 vertebrae are divided into 5 regions. The first region is cervical region. Cervical region. The second region, which is again the region of the vertebral column which is present in neck, is called cervical region, which is present against the thoracic cavity, is called thoracic vertebrae. And the next, which is present against the lumbar region, is called lumbar vertebrae. The next are sacral vertebrae, and the last one is the coccyx vertebrae. Coccyx vertebrae, right? The first, cervical vertebrae are 7 in number, thoracic are 12 in number, the lumbar are 5 in number, sacral are 5, and coccygeal are 4. If we add all these, it will become 33 vertebrae, right? We will represent the vertebrae by its region, or its common name. For example, the cervical vertebrae are C1, C2, C3, C4, C5, C6, and C7. The thoracic vertebrae are T1, T2, T3, T4, T5, T6, T7, and T12. Right? The lumbar vertebrae are L1, L2, L3, L4, L5. Right? The sacral are S1, S2, S3, S4, and S5. The coccygeal are in fused form, and they are called coccygeal vertebrae, right? So all these regions are vertebrae, making 33 vertebrae. So we count vertebral column, that vertebral column is composed of 33 further bones. If we see here in this diagram, these blacks are, this is C1, this is C2, C3, C4, C5, C6, and C7. It forms the neck region of body. These are called cervical vertebrae, right? These blue are T1, T2, T3, T4, T5, T6, T7, T8, T9, T10, T11, and this is T12. This region is making thoracic vertebrae. These vertebrae are divided into different regions because structurally they are different from each other, and functionally also they are different from each other, because the spinal nerves are arising from different regions, and they are innervating the different parts of our body. So these are thoracic vertebrae, which are 12 in number. They are 7 in number. These red vertebrae, the L1, L2, L3, L4 and L5, it makes the lumbar regions are lumbar vertebrae 5 in number, right? Remember that the vertebral disc, intervertebral disc, is present only in cervical region, thoracic region and lumbar region. After that there is no vertebral disc, and in many research it's clear that the sacral and coccygeal vertebrae are occurs in fused form. So these white vertebrae are S1, S2, S3, S4 and S5. These are sacral vertebrae, right? And the last, this fused bone, which is composed of further four bones. This is called coccyx. Coccyx. Here 5 and 4. All, if we add all these numbers, it will make 33 vertebrae, right? So these are all the bones which are present in the axial skeleton. If you want to count all these again for confirmation, right? For example, I have axial skeleton here. Axial skeleton, right? In axial skeleton, the first part is skull. Skull is further composed of cranium and face. Cranium is composed of 8 bones and face is composed of 14 plus 6. 14 plus 6 bones, right? All these making 28 bones, right? The second is ribs cage. The second part of the axial skeleton is ribs cage. Ribs cage is composed of true ribs, false ribs and floating ribs. True ribs are 7 in number. False ribs are 3 in number, and floating ribs are 2 in number. On each side they are present in equal amount. So these are 14, these are 6, and this is 4. So total 24 ribs are present in rib cage. The last is vertebral column. Vertebral column is composed further of 5 regions: cervical region, thoracic region, lumbar region, sacral region and coccygeal region. Cervical is composed of 7 vertebrae, it's 12 vertebrae, lumbar are 5 vertebrae, sacral are also 5, and coccygeal are 4. All these regions making 33 vertebrae, which is the number of vertebrae in vertebral column. So all these are the bones in axial skeleton, right? If we want to recap, the human skeleton is the framework of body, which is around which all the body is made, and it gives support and proper shape to body. The human skeleton is further composed of the axial skeleton and appendicular skeleton. The axial skeleton is composed of skull, ribs cage and vertebral column. Appendicular skeleton is composed of upper limbs and lower limbs, right? And skull is divided into 3 parts: the cranium, the facial bones and the auditory ossicles. The cranial bones are the frontal bone, this is the parietal bone, this is the occipital bone, this is the temporal bone, and this is sphenoid and ethmoid bones, right? The bones which making the face are zygomatic bone, maxilla, mandible, humor, nasal bones, inferior conchae, palatine bones, and lacrimal bones. Right. The auditory ossicles are the malleus, incus, and stapes. Right. In ribs cage, we have three types of ribs: the true ribs, false ribs, and floating ribs. The true ribs are directly attached to sternum. The false ribs are indirectly attached to sternum, and the floating ribs are ending blindly and they are not attached to sternum. Right. The next are vertebral column. Vertebral column is further divided into 5 regions and composed of 33 vertebrae: the cervical region, the thoracic vertebrae, the lumbar vertebrae, the sacral vertebrae, and coccyx vertebrae. Cervical vertebrae are 7 in number, thoracic are 12 in number, lumbar are 5 in number, sacral are also 5, and coccyx are 4. All these making 33 bones. This is all about the axial skeleton. In next lecture, we will discuss appendicular skeleton.